Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Pilgrims, welcome back to another episode of the Missing Links Golf Show. Andy Walker, once again, we are script-free for episode 38. Welcome back, my friend.
It's interesting because I did, in our brief conversation before we jumped on, usually I do have a few bullet points that I want to talk about, but this week, nada.
No,
Have not
no.
even had a chance to write anything down. So it is quite literally flying by the seat of our pants this week.
Well, you might say that, but I have a little bit to cover,
Mm,
Andy Walker, which we will get to in just a moment, because there was a round of golf played on Saturday in the monthly medal stroke event
mm,
at my home course, and I do need to take you through that performance
mm.
because Andy Walker, let's just say it was all happening out there.
Right. Okay.
Mm.
I'm interested to know whether that's a positive or not so much.
Yes, it is.
Both.
I think it's
Good one.
the best way that I can answer that. But I want to come back to our previous episode. We had a discussion in the halfway house, which was our previous episode. And
We
Pilgrims,
did.
I hope that you picked up why we called it that. And it was because we have reached halfway in the Missing Links Golf Show Yearly Championship. So that, of course, was the halfway house. We stopped after 9. We had a very long-winded and random conversation about all things golf and the global political scene, which I'll come back to in just a moment. Therefore, we have now just recently teed off on the 10th, and this episode we feel might be referred to as the back nine, because yes, Andy Walker, who doesn't love a bit of back nine action?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to come home strong on the back nine, as we've discussed many times on the show before. So, yeah.
Well, you don't have to, but can if you want. It's not a rule.
Oh, look, I mean, I always like coming home strong on the back nine. So,
Oh, it's
you know,
good. It's nice. It's good. Those days when you do it's always good. So yes, the back nine. We'll call this episode the back nine, and I think by the end of the episode, everyone is going to understand
the reference.
just just why we've decided on that name. But Andy Walker,
Mm,
before we get there, I want to take you back to the halfway house and the conversation that we were having about our listeners that have just recently joined the Missing Links Golf Show from Russia and Ukraine. You
yes.
might recall we were putting it out there to see if anyone knew of any famous golfers from that part of the world. I don't know. Have you done any research over the past week? I know you've been a busy man, so I'm not
No,
expecting
given
much.
it's my busiest time of the year, being in the accounting industry and all end of year, and the joyful things of end of year. So, yeah, first 2 weeks of the financial year, and that's the Australian financial year, which I think the US has a different financial year. The financial year in the US, I think, is a calendar year,
I
whereas in
know, I know it is
Australia
in the
it's
UK. Definitely is in
yeah,
the UK.
whereas in Australia it's 1 July through to 30th of June, because
Mm,
basically we're all on holidays on, at
mm.
the end of December, early January. So
Which I think is
um,
why they do it the other way around in the Northern
yes,
Hemisphere.
correct,
Andy Walker.
correct. So yeah, and as of 48 hours time, and when we're currently talking, I'm going to be on holidays.
Oh, now that's
So
exciting.
yeah, I'm very, very excited
That is
by and,
exciting.
and heading north, heading up to Queensland.
Nothing
And
better in a New South Wales winter than hitting the tropics.
it is actually the same week as the state of origin decider,
The decider.
which is going to be a very interesting game of footy. Now, anyone who doesn't follow rugby league, and certainly rugby league in Australia, we do have a New South Wales versus Queensland
It's the
representative
ultimate
series
grudge
each year.
match.
It is. It's actually seen as more prestigious as representing Australia. It's seen
Mm.
as the pinnacle of rugby league. So, New South Wales versus Queensland. what it's been probably 40 something years now, 43, 44 years. It's, I think 1980 was the first year. And yeah, so
Oh,
it's
you'd be
it's
about
one
that. You'd be
all.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
One
it's
all
one
going to
all.
third.
Yeah, Queensland won the first match in Sydney. New South Wales won the second down in Melbourne. And next week, which when this drops, it's going to be this week. We have the decider, which I'm very much looking forward to watching. I actually did think about going to Suncorp Stadium and trying to get a ticket,
Ooh,
but
got to
they were
wear your Blues
very,
jumper. Don't wear your
very
Parramatta jumper.
limited. No, no, that's a bit embarrassing.
Although Mitchell
Um,
Moses, man of the match in game two,
well, and that's it. I mean, that was a Mitchell Moses masterclass, I have to
it
say.
really
Like
was. It was.
he
That
really
was up
came
there
of
with
age.
Up there with Nathan Cleary in last year's grand final against the
Yeah,
Broncos.
and this is the interesting thing. Sorry to start talking about rugby league rather than golf, but
Is it a golf show? I don't know.
well, that's it. It's a sports show.
Yeah,
The thing that I find really interesting is that if you had a choice now after watching Mitchell Moses in game two, and given, and I would say Nathan Cleary has underperformed at origin level.
true, true.
He's completely outperformed, absolute genius at club level and for the Penrith Panthers. But at origin level, I feel as though he's underperformed, whereas Mitchell Moses has just taken it to the next level. So, given the performances, all things being equal, and you had the choice of one or the other, who would you choose?
Oh, Andy Walker, what a question. Um, Let me see. I'll give you the tip. I probably would not choose Keegan Bradley. Just to bring it back to a golfing parlance, but we'll get to that, I'm sure, at some point. No, interesting question because if both players were playing and were fully fit, playing for their club and were
Mm,
fully fit, now that's a question. But Cleary coming back from injury, obviously not quite back, but assuming he got back a bit faster and he was fully fit and he went out and had a blinder for the Panthers last weekend, ladies and gentlemen, the Penrith Panthers, who Nathan Cleary plays for. And I do apologise, any American listeners that don't follow the NRL and don't have any idea about rugby league, get on YouTube and do a bit of research. It's absolutely fantastic sport. You'll love it. To our UK listeners, Andy Walker mentioned earlier that state of origin is more important than playing for your country. Um, Probably true because really New South Wales or Queensland would probably beat the
yeah.
Great Britain team on their own.
Well,
How many
there's a big
listeners?
difference between rugby league internationally and rugby union internationally.
Unless you've got a
Whereas,
French referee.
yeah, well, that's true. Whereas the Wallabies, the Australian rugby union team, are not particularly competitive.
Beat the
Uh,
Welsh on the weekend.
yeah, beat the Welsh on the weekend, and that sort of
Mm.
gives us a little bit of hope coming into the future with a new coach and a new look. But certainly, rugby league is less competitive worldwide than what rugby union is.
It is. But to answer your question at the moment, right now, right this very minute, if I was Michael Maguire, coach of the New South Wales Blues, forced to pick a team for game three for the decider, there is absolutely no chance that I could drop Mitchell Moses after that
Mm.
game in game two.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I would think as well. I think all things being equal, in today where we are, I would struggle with Mitchell Moses being dropped for anyone really.
Mm, mm. Well, that's exciting. Let's get back on the golf topics because that is, after all, why
Well,
people are tuning
I
in.
haven't
Oh,
been
we
playing
assume we don't
golf.
know.
I haven't been
You've been
playing
watching
golf, so
footy.
yeah, I've just been watching a little bit of sport here and there on TV
You've
when
been
in
watching the
between
footy.
my end of year processes.
Yes, well, you are going on holidays. That's exciting. That actually does lead us to another little announcement, which is that there will probably be a slight delay in the release of our next episode. And that is because, of course, Andy Walker will be sunning himself in the tropics of Queensland.
Mm.
And what we've decided is that we will wait till his return and then we will do a live review of the Open Championship. So that will mean for our time, we'll probably be releasing it 24 hours later than normal. Um, so there you go, Pilgrims. That's what we'll be doing. But on to this week. On to this week, to start with going back to last week, we had a conversation about Russian and Ukrainian golfers, Andy Walker,
Oh
and I've done
yeah,
a little
okay.
bit of
We're
research.
we've taken sort of two steps back and then two steps further back, and No,
It's a long-winded
and
way
in
of getting
answer
there.
to your question, you asked me a question is, do I know any, have I done any research and do I
Mm,
know any golfers from that part of the world? The answer is not Ukraine and Russia, but probably the closest in Adrian Moronk, who comes from Poland, is
true,
probably the closest
true,
to
true,
that
true,
region.
true. I'm going to throw a couple of names out for you, and let's see if you recognise any of these names. I'm going to start with Yevgeny Kafelnikov.
Yes,
Yes, can you remember where you might have heard that name, Andy Walker?
he doesn't sound like a golfer. I
He's a
do
tennis player.
know. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I
He's a
don't.
tennis player.
I'm actually starting to get into tennis because my son's starting to take an interest in tennis. So he's probably someone who I will know over the next few months because I'm starting on Wimbledon's on at the moment. So
Currently at the
ta
moment.
taking on watching a little bit of
Come on, Alex
Wimbledon.
Demonor up against
Yeah, the Joker
Djokovic.
tonight.
Yep. Um, Yevgeny Kafelnikov, to get to the point, did finish his tennis career and then became a professional golfer.
All right. Okay. There you go.
And then shortly thereafter became a professional poker player,
Okay. Doesn't
which,
mind a switch.
which is potentially an indication of the success of his golfing career.
So he's Russian?
Russian,
Russian.
Russian.
Mm.
Another one for you, Natalia Guseva.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you know how to pronounce that name properly, so I don't have a lot of chance of that.
So I'm pretty confident with Natalia. I'm not sure
Mm,
about the Guseva part, but
mm.
who's to know? Anyway, Natalia Guseva has recently, as of December 2023, so this is probably happening now, got her card on the LPGA tour.
As in the European
No,
LPGA?
as in the LPGA, I'm assuming that is the American version. She also won Q School for the LET, which is the Ladies European Tour.
Wow. Okay. There you go. There you go.
So they've certainly got a prospect there in the ladies' game. But yeah, it's from my research, which I'll be honest is not as thorough as it could be. Yevgeny
So is she
Kafelnikov seems to
Russian
be.
or Ukrainian?
She's Russian. I couldn't find any
Russian.
Ukrainian golfers, unfortunately. I feel like they're somewhat otherwise engaged with activities in their country right now. I did have one or more of the pilgrims reach out just asking after our health to make sure that we were both okay and hadn't succumbed to any potential attacks from Russian authorities after our discussions in the previous episode. Hence why I'm doubling down this episode.
Mm.
To the
I mean,
Russian
we
authorities,
didn't say anything negative, like,
no,
you
we
know,
merely ask questions,
yeah,
encouragement for world peace. I think we've got a Nobel Peace Prize on the way as well, Andy Walker, after our best new talent for the podcasting
maybe,
industry awards.
maybe.
PIAs, as I like to refer to them. But that's a little bit off topic. I've got to be honest. We need a script, Andy Walker. We absolutely need a script. So we'll get back on track. Let's talk about the back nine. The back nine, the second half of the yearly championship for this year. We're kicking off in the month of July, and it is. I think it's going to be interesting. Are you going to get any competitive rounds in Andy Walker, or is the injury still
What
dominating?
over the second half of the year? I hope so.
Oh, sorry, in July.
I was going to say
Or
it's
even
not
in the
that
second half of the year.
bad.
Yeah, in the second, are you ever going to play again?
Yes, I do believe I am. July, probably not. I think I'd sort of made that commitment not to play in
Mm,
July. Look,
it's
it's
going to be
interesting because
tempting, though.
I did have a few shots in the high performance center a little bit earlier on, actually, before we came on, and also yesterday.
Mm.
And I can still feel like my second injury a little bit. First injury where, sort of the lower right side of my rib cage, completely fine, no
Mm.
issue there at all. The second injury I had was more sort of in the sternum, and
Oh,
sort of
really?
and then sort of going towards the right side of my upper
Sternum.
rib cage. Yeah, so and my remedial massage therapist reckons it was a compensation injury.
Mm, mm,
That sort of, and she said it's quite common that when you've got one injury, you'll get an injury somewhere else because of overcompensation. So yeah, so I still felt that a little bit, but I do feel as though it's coming along and healing faster than what I did in when I had the initial injury. So look, we're still, when we're recording now, I've still got 3 weeks till the end of July, but at the end of the day, my focus is September. And I
mm,
said it last week, that's my goalpost, and that's really when I want to start being able to play competitively and play a reasonable amount of competitive golf through September. So if I try and push it like I did last month and I
yep,
re-injure myself at the end of July, I'm no chance of competing in September.
yep.
Whereas if I'm conservative, if I make those conservative decisions, sort of like what we're trying to achieve with golf, making conservative decisions, and if I do that, excuse me, and I don't play until say mid-August,
Mm,
then yeah, I think I've got a much better chance of being successful. As I said, I'm going to play maybe up to 9 holes. I'll see how I go. I'll play a few holes here and there, and maybe try and push myself up to 9 holes by the end of the month. But I don't want to be playing. Don't want to be playing 18. I was fine after nine. At the end of June,
mm.
it was around that sort of 15th, 16th hole. That's when it really started to hurt. So yeah, I want to just
Makes a lot of
gradually build
sense.
myself back up again.
Oh, I think it makes a lot of sense. I didn't actually realize that it was two completely separate injuries. I
Mm.
thought you'd kind of re-aggravated the first one, but that makes sense. In my expert opinion, it probably is an overcompensation injury. I'd agree with that. You're
Oh,
obviously
thanks.
seeing the
I'll,
right
I'll I'll
physicians.
take I'll take that on board.
Yeah, feel free to pass that on to your medical treatment officers as well.
That, that you concur with their
Yeah,
expert medical
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. And I haven't seen you in person, so I've got no way of judging that other than listening to the stories that you tell.
Excellent.
Um, right. So yeah, that's certainly put you behind the eight ball in the short term.
Yeah, in the short term, yes, but at the end of the day, the goal is 55. And I'm still a reasonable way off 55, so I've got time.
Are you going to make it at this point? Like
Yeah, look, I
this
mean, it's
rate of
only
injury.
it's only like one injury and then an overcompensation of that same injury. So it's not like, I'm down for the count and I've had like a whole string of injuries. I mean, illnesses and viruses, that's a little bit different. I had a fairly
True.
bad run over Christmas and into the start of the new year. But yeah, other than that, I've been pretty good.
Is it? I mean, I've heard people talking about the fact that they think that it could be, feelings of intimidation given my immense improvement this year and you've just been pushing too hard. Do you think that's it?
Oh, look, it's always within the realms of possibilities, but given how far in front I am in the yearly championship, I'm not sure intimidation is the right word for it. I
I
mean,
mean, they weren't my words. I'm just sharing them.
yeah, I mean, amusement maybe.
Well, wow, harsh,
Yeah,
harsh.
got to call it how it is.
Pilgrims, tell us what you think. I don't know. I'm not sure who to believe anymore. Um, anyway, let's get to some actual golf. There has been a round of golf played in this reporting period, and I feel we've had a little bit of a chat. You've obviously seen the overall result, but you've got no
Yes,
idea what actually happened.
no.
So, and
I
I
got a
and I
reasonable idea as well what happened, but like overall in a summary, but
I don't think you do. I
right.
really don't
Okay.
think you do.
Wow.
So Pilgrims, I want to take you back in time. I don't have a recording. I did not do a recording on the way to the course, which is disappointing. But I'm going to take you back in time because on Saturday, club round, monthly medal stroke event off the plates.
I'm looking forward to that too. And I think you
I
were
was pumped. I
relatively confident
was
of
pumped. I
playing
was
well.
confident. I was feeling good. One caveat, two caveats. Um, one of those being that not much practice had been had because it's school holidays now. So the family's back and the high performance centre shut down for the period. So no swinging in the garage in the week leading up to it. And the second caveat, Andy Walker, it was windy. It was very, very windy.
See,
Um,
I'm not convinced that of the word caveat is the right term. I think excuses is probably
Hear me out.
closer to it.
Hear
What
me
do you
out.
reckon? Pilgrims, just after the story, okay, we'll
After the
listen.
story,
We'll go into it with an open mind,
don't prejudge. Don't prejudge.
and after the story, we will actually make some decisions as to whether, these are caveats or whether they're just excuses.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out how I tell this story to you, Andy Walker. I've got, I can say that. And deliberately,
No,
I haven't let you see that, but
I
that on
can't
my
see
on
that.
the screen of my phone there that I just flashed in front of the camera
Mm.
is the scorecard that I've got as a photo. Now I could send it to you and talk you through it, but I think I might just talk you through it rather than giving it away. So anyway, monthly medal off the plates, pins tucked, greens fast, bit of wind about, but generally excited, feeling good about things, and looking forward to the round. So anyway, we step up onto the first is the par five, long straight par five, OB up the right, a little bit of water on the left down for your second shot, which generally, to be honest, is generally speaking out of play. But some people managed to hit it. One of my playing partners managed to hit it in this particular round, so I thought that was a good effort. But anyway, off the first, stepped up. Andy Walker smoked a drive 260 meters up the middle.
Nice, nice, good
I
start.
was quite happy with that. So what's 260 meters? It's about
So I think two ninety two,
about
two
two
ninety
nine,
three. I think
something like that.
yards. I think, yeah.
Yeah. So that like for me, that's quite good. Hit my second just short, chipped onto the green, or sort of pitched onto the green because the flag was right at the back corner. Pitched onto the green, and young fella was caddy. And as we walked up, he said, "Oh, yeah, it's took a bit of an unfortunate bounce to the right, rolled a bit away from the hole. It's probably about 15 feet." Young fella had a look at it and he went, "It's makeable." That was his verdict. It's
Yeah,
makeable. And it was in for a birdie on one.
nice. One under.
Yeah. One under 3-1. So that was a good start.
So how many? Okay, this is a question. How many times do you reckon in a round of golf have you been under par?
There's there's probably three times that I can think of, all of which would be in this situation is birdieing the first.
Yeah. So have you sort of got down sort of three or four holes and been under par, or is it just the first and you've then got a bit shaky on the second and
Shall we continue the story?
okay, yeah.
Um, Second hole, had another cracking drive, slight dogleg right, nice little left hander. Remember, baby draw around the corner into the fairway, 100 out. Um,
So were you thinking
Sort of,
under par at this stage, like walking down the
oh
fairway?
mate,
You're going, I'm
absolutely,
shooting
yeah,
under par today.
60 something. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking reclaiming the 4 points for best round of the year.
Yeah, right.
No,
Okay.
I'm not thinking any of these
I was
things,
going to
Andy Walker.
say
I'm
it's
thinking one
it's a bit
shot at a
early.
time. I'm
It's
thinking
a
one
bit
shot at a
early to
time.
start thinking that, but
Is what
anyway.
I'm thinking. No, in the fairway, about 100 meters, 110 yards ish out. Gap wedge, slight toe strike. So hit the very front edge of the green, center pin, two putt par, one under after two. Third hole, third hole's tough hole, stroke two or three on the
Mm.
course. Made a solid
Yeah,
bogey.
I love the third hole.
It's a good hole. Made a solid bogey. So that was okay. So even through three. Fourth hole, that long sweeping par four, 400 and something meters. Um, Hit an aggressive line off the tee. Aggressive line, caught that massive big tree, whatever that tree is. It's very big anyway. Hit that, was down at the base of it. I
So
hit
it
Andy
wasn't
Walker.
necessarily an aggressive line. You just hit it into the trees.
Oh, I hit it right of where I was aiming. Yeah, cutting the corner, which you cannot do because there's no way past that tree.
Mm.
And I was down at the base of it, so no line at the flag. I was about 180 meters, 185 meters to the green. So I hit a big sweepy hooky 5-iron, flushed it, Andy Walker, just short of the front edge, but didn't get up and down, so I made bogey. So I was one over after four. And then the fifth is a fairly simple par three, one of the easiest holes on the course. I was playing about 145 meters, so it's at 160 yards. Um, yeah, I hit an 8 iron. I thought I'd hit it quite well, but I don't know how this happened. Like I pulled it to the 16th tee box, which is the par five to the right hand side,
Yeah, right. Okay.
like a long 30 meters
Yeah,
right of the green.
that's
It was
a
a
long
big
way
miss,
right. Yeah.
big miss. Made double. That was disappointing. So I was two over after
Mm.
five. No, three over after five. Um, Parred my way in for the nine for a three over front nine,
Okay.
39. I
That's pretty good.
was pretty happy with that.
Still must be feeling pretty good about yourself at this stage.
I was feeling good. I was feeling very good.
What was the young bloke
Um,
saying?
he
Was
was
he
pretty
pumped?
happy. Yeah,
Mm.
he was pretty happy. Good sand save on eight. Another good flushed 5 iron on seven as well to hit the green. I was again, I was about 175 out, blocked out with trees a little bit. Had a bit of tree trouble off the tee and had to fade the 5 iron this time after looking at managed to, start it at the right bunker, fade it back to the center of the green, nearly made the birdie putt. It was quite remarkable.
Nice.
Working the 5 iron both ways, Andy Walker had the ball on a string. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the title of this show, of this episode at least, is the back nine.
Mm.
Let's go to the back nine, Andy Walker.
Yeah, let's do that.
Good drive on 10. Again, slight toe strike on the approach, tap in bogey. It's okay. It's acceptable. 11, not a great tee shot. Par 3, 11, not a great tee shot. A bit short of the green. Front pin, tucked behind a bunker. Had to chip, bit long, two-putt bogey. So that's okay. It's okay, though. We're 5 over after 11 holes. So not looking too bad. Then the 12th, the 12th hole, Andy Walker
Yeah, the par
at my
five.
home course. Yeah.
Mm.
Par five, long par five, two lakes, one lake all the way up the left. Really almost impossible to carry with your driver. You can get almost to the end of it. Some people could get slightly past it, but I can't. And then there's another lake and then the green.
Yep.
So into the wind. So this was a genuine three shot par five. Step up with the driver, aim up the right side of the fairway. Nice little baby cut back to the center.
Nice.
Does it just drift a little bit further than the center towards the left edge?
Was it an overcut?
Then it just missed the left edge and it came down about a meter off the left edge. But that was right on
Yeah.
the top of the hill that it just shot left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Straight
Yeah.
into the water.
Nothing really stopping it from there.
There's no stopping there. No stopping there. So into the water. So unfortunately, rinsed the first one. But that's okay. One shot at a time. Shake it off. Walk down there. Drop the second. Thought I'd hit a hybrid up to the corner. Leave myself about 100 in. Hit the hybrid straight into the second lake, which was disappointing.
Mm.
These things happen. Walk up. Drop now the fourth, hitting the fifth.
And it's a stroke event, so at this stage you can't just pick up and walk to the
No,
next.
that's right.
You've
That's right.
you've
You've got to finish the hole. You got to
lay
finish
out.
the hole. And at this point, start doing the maths, right? Going, if
Yeah.
if I hit to here
Yeah.
and I'm looking at an 8, maybe a 9, something like that. So, look, in fairness, I probably got a little bit more aggressive than I needed to.
Ooh, that doesn't sound good.
No, it wasn't. And it faded a little bit as well. And it hit a tree on the other side of the lake and ricocheted straight back into the lake. But unfortunately, what made it worse is the tree was actually growing inside the hazard line. So I had
Oh
to drop it again
no.
right at my feet.
Wow.
So hit 7, which ballooned a bit. I was about 30 meters short of the green. And again, thinking, got to get up and down for a 9. So got a bit fancy with my sand wedge.
That's a tough green as well. Was it?
Yeah. It wasn't
left?
up on the knob. No, it wasn't quite that bad. It was just at the base of that little downhill area. But anyway, left that pitch short, then had to chip on to about 6 feet, missed the putt for an 11. A 6 over par 11.
Legs 11. You don't want to be putting a double digits on your scorecard. I mean,
No,
I know even the best pros
Nelly
have
Corder
done it.
recently.
Nelly Corda, Jordan Spieth, we know did it. Tiger, I think, did it at
Yep.
Augusta, didn't he, on the 12th?
Yeah,
So even the best,
it can happen.
it does happen.
Um, so I was very, very proud of myself though for not getting cranky and not losing it at this point. Like, still, all right, it is what it is. It's an 11.
What was
That
the other
now
bloke
puts
saying?
me. He's got good emotional maturity, so he wasn't saying a great deal.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Did he look
so
disappointed or?
yeah, he was, and that that was a bit of an issue. It was he wasn't upset. He was just disappointed.
Yeah,
Um, so we go to the 13th tee, long straight, par four, tough hole, OB up the left. Um, Stood on the tee and absolutely smoked a drive, which I saw for about the first 100 meters of ball flight, and it was going straight up the middle. And then it kind of got lost in glary cloud.
yep.
But anyway, it looked dead straight, felt dead straight, long, all good. So we all walked up there. As we were walking up there, there was another group playing down 12. And as you know, to stay away from the water, a lot of people play down 13, up 12.
Yep.
So there's guys out there in the fairway hitting balls
Mm,
back over our heads.
yep.
We walked up, got down there, can't find my ball anywhere. Vanished.
Yeah, right.
So we had a good look around. And I should also mention, Andy Walker, it was a very, very, very slow day. Um, as it transpired, it was a more than 5 hour round of
Yeah,
golf.
right. Well, I mean
Um,
that's a monthly medal,
yeah,
afternoon
but it
tea
was it
time,
was
monthly medal
it was even
stroke.
slow. It
Yeah,
was even
right.
slow for that. So anyway, there was a lot of people all around. So we're looking around, spending our 3 minutes and kind of going, well, I thought it was straight, but I can't be 100% sure. So maybe it's in the trees, left or right. Couldn't be found anyway. What we did find was a filthy old Titleist that had been left behind by somebody else,
Mm,
which sort of adds weight to the theory that perhaps the ball had been played by someone in the other group. Who's to know? But anyway, we had to declare the ball lost
yep.
at this point, which was a little disappointing, I've got to
Mm,
say, Andy
yep.
Walker, because that's now the walk of shame back to the tee
Yeah.
box to play three off the tee.
And when you've like smoked it, what you think is down the middle of the fairway, yeah, that is definitely a hard walk back to the tee.
Yeah, it was unpleasant. And at that point, there's a new professional that has joined the club and
Oh yeah,
taken the
yep.
reins,
Mm,
who I was having a chat with before the round, talking about maybe getting some coaching and just having a general chit chat about where the game's at the moment and all of the rest of it. And anyway, he materialised in a golf cart out of nowhere
at that
at
exact
that
point in time.
particular point.
Yep.
And as I was trudging back to the team, he's like, "Oh, mate, jump in. I'll give you a lift back." So yeah, thanks. Appreciate that, Jake. So we had a bit of a chat, and he's like, "Oh, how you going?" I said, "Yeah, look, been playing really well, hitting the ball nicely. Made an 11 on the 12th. That was disappointing, and I've just lost my ball here, so this is not looking amazing." So anyway, he gave me a bit of a pep talk, which I thought was nice.
Mm,
Keep grinding, don't give up, all that sort of stuff. So thanks, mate. So we get back to the tee box. The group behind us has already teed off over our heads, and they've gone through. They're playing through us. My guys are waiting up on the fairway. We're standing down on the tee box, just me and the new golf pro, as I'm hitting three off the tee. And this
yep.
is the first time that he's going to watch me swing a club.
Mm. You nervous?
A little, a little. And anyway, focus on the process. Don't worry about the outcome. All of that. Happy to say, absolutely smoked one up the center.
Nice.
It was
Nice.
probably my best drive of the day. I looked at it later on the stats. It was 268 meters.
Wow. Okay. Yep.
It's one of my longest drives. Slightly helping breeze though, because we were into it on 12. So, it was blowing a gale into us on 12 and it was slightly helping on 13.
Of
Uh,
course. Of course.
but what was nice is that new golf pro standing there, because I think his expectations of what I was going to produce after making an 11 on 12, which I'd
Yep.
admitted to, and just losing my ball, I think were fairly low.
Mm.
So anyway, there hit the ball and he goes, oh, good swing. No, great swing. That's got miles.
Excellent. Nice.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Did
So
did
we drive up
the chest guard a little bit further
a
and
little
like,
bit,
bit of
little bit.
spring in the step?
felt all right. So we got up there, found the ball, made par with the second ball, but unfortunately, it's a net double bogey because I'm
Yeah.
playing three off the tee.
Yep. Yep.
So that was disappointing. So we're now 13 over. Um, it's game over really at this point for any meaningful score. Get to the 14th, water up the right, trees up the left. It's one of those holes where you just have to step up and hit a good shot.
Because that's
So
back into the wind again, isn't it?
back into the wind. So
Yep.
I hit a pretty good drive. It was going up the left edge and it just drifted a little bit left towards the tree line. But that's not a major issue. You can usually punch out up, at least get yourself within 40, 50 meters of the green. But we get up there and Andy Walker, no ball again.
Wow.
Gone.
Okay.
Absolutely gone. So I couldn't believe it at this point, feeling extremely hard done by the
Yeah.
golfing
Yeah. For
gods.
sure. For sure.
Um, and look, honestly, it's like it was slightly in the tree line, but there's no reason for that ball to vanish. There was no other groups around. Quite honestly, unless it's hit a tree trunk, gone sideways into the lake, who knows? We didn't see anything come out. But that cost another couple of shots, and at that point, I'm 15 over,
Yeah.
dead
Yeah.
in the water. And as much as I hate to admit it, Andy Walker, I pretty much ejected out of the round at that point.
Wow. Okay. That's a interesting comment to
Yep.
make. Yeah, I wouldn't have expected to hear those words come from your mouth. I
No,
have to
and
admit.
and it was a weird one, right? Because it
So
wasn't
what
a.
did you finish? So just for
I
the
finished. I
pilgrims, what
finished
did you
the
finish?
round. I finished the round. Strap yourself in with a 92 off the stick, which is 53 around the second nine.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you walked off the 18th green, did you like hold your club in the air and like
No,
acknowledge the half
it was one
century
of the. It
or
was one of those. To be honest with you, it was one of those things where we were standing around for every shot, waiting so long, and it was starting to get really cold. Just waiting for people to play shots and walk back to carts and get out of the way. That it literally got to the point of I just don't want to be here.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
given that group played through you on 13,
yeah, and
you
went
would
nowhere
have
in front,
yeah,
and
yeah. You would have been
we
another
were
20
just
minutes longer than
yeah,
any other group on
yeah.
the day, probably.
It was like I have never in my life experienced a three-hole stretch like that
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
what happened. And we'll dissect it in a minute with what happened with making 11 on the par five, followed by two just random lost balls it was like one of those things of everything that could possibly go wrong did go wrong.
Well,
And
I mean,
even in the
the first
telling
one,
of
I
it,
guess, the first one, I guess, makes sense. If there's another group there, and you can probably say with a relative amount of certainty that someone's played your ball, especially if you've hit a pretty good shot, you felt like you've smoked it, and certainly for the first 100 meters going down the middle of the fairway,
yeah,
and there are
it
other
wouldn't have been
golfers
too far
around.
off
Yeah.
if it was, but it was nowhere to
I
be
mean,
seen.
the second ball, I guess, on 14, weird things happen. Could be under a leaf, it could be, up a tree,
Stuck in
and
the
you
bark
don't,
halfway up the
yeah,
tree trunk. Yeah.
and you just don't see it. Yeah, I mean, I understand if it's not on the fairway, but certainly, yeah, it's pretty disappointing and unusual for that to happen 2 holes in a row.
Yep. Yeah, it was. And I was feeling all of the emotions of being very hard done by, ripped off by the golfing gods, all those things. You don't get to get out that much. It had been 3 weeks between rounds. How can these things happen? But it wasn't feelings of anger and frustration. I was just really sad.
Mm,
And I was just deflated. And
yeah.
yeah, it was very hard. It
Mm.
was very hard.
So what are the lessons then to come out of it? I mean, not I guess,
Well,
you've got a couple of unlucky breaks, which is just it's golf. And it sounds like even though, you had an 11 on the 12th, again, if you've just missed the fairway on your tee shot, and I mean that it does, that's a pretty hard slope, and you don't have to miss it by much to get down to the water, and then it's just a couple of poor shots, and you've made an 11. So it's not as bad as what it looks on the scorecard.
No, if I had, as I mentally was preparing to do, like if I walked off that tee and then played well for the rest and it was just one bad hole, no
Mm,
problem. Absolutely no problem. Chalk that up, move on with your life. It was the getting completely and utterly rochambeaued on the next two holes and rubbing the
yeah,
salt in that made it difficult. And I think one of the what's interesting is one of the biggest lessons is we've been talking for a long time about not being outcome focused, but being process focused and playing
yep,
every shot, not worrying about the score and add it up at the end and all of those sort of things, which are all true. And I think I've felt like I've been doing a lot of that. But what was interesting when you talk about the lessons learned, and I have a list. Um, one of them is I'm still more outcome focused than I like to think.
yeah, yep,
And as soon as it got to the point where it was not a salvageable round, because again on a Stableford round, three wipes, not great, but or actually one of those wouldn't have been a wipe. One of those would have been a 1 pointer anyway. So like not great, but you can almost make that up or at least still post a reasonable round. But in a
yeah,
stroke event where it takes you
yeah.
so
You're
far
dead.
beyond,
Yeah,
there's no coming back.
yeah,
And I think once I got to that point of no coming back, that kind of broke my spirit, to be perfectly honest.
right.
Um, and and that was surprising. Like that, I was not expecting that to be able still to be able to happen,
Mm,
but it did. I think one of the other things, which was a really good reminder, there's not that much difference between good golf and a bad score.
no, no, there's not at all, at all. It can just happen out of the blue, and even those two holes that take the 11 out of the equation, and those two holes, 13 and 14, where you lose a golf ball off your tee
Yeah,
shot, both holes. I mean, that in itself, can go from, having a reasonable score and say, for instance, you were, 6 or 7 over with a reasonable chance of playing to your handicap coming in. And all of a sudden you have two doubles from nowhere because you've lost your ball on both tee shots. I mean, that takes it from, you being, on the game or maybe a little bit in front to then being sort of, 10 over or 11 over
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
and and, and being
yeah,
well behind again.
yeah. So it's not great. But that was one thing, like there's not much between good golf and things going pear shaped, which also means there's not much between things going pear shaped and good golf. Conversely, to bring it
Correct.
back the other way,
Mm.
um, and it's always so hard when you're in the moment when things are going badly to realize that you're actually not as far away as you think you are from good golf.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
So trying to
And,
turn
and
that a
I,
bit.
yeah, I had that experience a bit earlier in the year where I was sort of struggling through sort of January, February, and a couple of okay rounds in March, but had a shocker in the Macquarie Cup. But then through April and May, I played really well. So yeah, it's
Mm,
not that far off at all. And I mean, I did spend a little bit of time in the high performance center and worked on a few things in my game, but I didn't think it was that much between one and the other. It was fractions, you know,
mm,
and not even that, like parts of fractions, like it was
mm.
decimal points of, between one and the other. So yeah, it's not, you know, all is not lost if you've gone out and had a bit of an ordinary day.
So there's all those bits. Another thing that really came out of it is that it it is difficult to concentrate and be like in the right place mentally to therefore execute. It's difficult to do that for 18 holes.
Mm,
Um, it's one thing to do it for 9 holes, but it's difficult to do it for 18 holes, which separate discussion item for another time. But that whole handicapping system change about extrapolating 9 hole rounds into an 18 hole score I
Mm.
have issues with because it is
Yeah,
actually difficult to
it's an
hold that.
18 hole game. Yeah.
And it's an 18 hole game for a reason, right? Like not
Yep.
just 9 holes and hold up a mirror. Um, that's difficult. It's even more difficult doing that when the conditions are not perfect and it's slow and you're out there for longer and
Yeah.
it's being dragged out and there's more time to think and less time to just react and
Mm.
do. So
But I mean, you've also got to look at the fact that A, it's a stroke event. B, you're playing off the plates.
mm,
C, it's a medal. So
mm.
pin positions are, not the easiest. Usually medal days are more difficult pins. It's championship style setup. The difference between good golf and scoring well and just being a fraction off,
It's
it's not it's
minuscule.
not it's not much at all.
It's minuscule. And with all of those things in mind, afterwards, when I sat down and thought about it, I thought, oh, I will invariably spend a lot of time thinking about the second nine because that's the way that we operate as humans.
Yep.
But I also want to spend a lot of time thinking about the front nine. Like posting a 39, 3 over 39 around the front nine, I thought was really good golf.
Yeah, yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
I hit the ball well. I hit a lot of fairways, hit a lot of greens. It wasn't because I was making long putts, like it was just solid, making the putts that needed to be made, but just lagging a lot close and a lot of tap in pars in
Mm.
that. So
So I then, you look at what we've just talked about, and it wasn't really even 18 holes. It wasn't a full round of golf that where you played
no,
poorly. It was
no,
9 holes of golf.
yeah, no, it wasn't even because 10 and 11 I was okay with. Like I made tap in bogeys and that like they were reasonable holes and they weren't off track. Like
Yep.
I'm okay to make a couple of bogeys, but it was from 12 onwards. It was literally it was 7 holes.
Mm.
Realistically, it's what it was. So what, by no means all was not lost. Um, I also felt like my ball striking, my swing, for the most part, once I kind of ejected, that's a different story. But like when I was head down playing serious golf, that it's my swing is feeling in a really good place.
Mm.
There's a lot to take from that. Being able, and as silly as it sounds, but being able to play 2 5 irons on, sort of a couple of holes apart, deliberately working it in opposite directions. I have never been able to do that before.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Yep.
doing that successfully and in hitting them well and getting them where they needed to go. And it was funny because playing partner that was there when I was going to hit the fade, which is not my natural shape. I'm far more comfortable drawing the ball with irons in particular. And he was standing there. I said, "Oh, look, I'm going to try and fade this one around this tree. I've got to start it outside the right bunker and drift it back to the center of the green." And this is a person who, guess who it is a fairly technical thinker about the game.
Yep. Yep.
Is a fan of Homer Kelly and the golfing machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So immediately it's like, oh, so what are you going to do? Like move the ball position, open your stance, just hold the hands a bit more open and a bit more hinge on, steeper backswing. I'm like, I said, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand up to the ball and I'm going to think fade.
And how was that received? Was it
Perplexed.
was it just like,
Yeah. What are you talking about? I'm going to imagine my ball flight as a fade.
mm,
And then I'm going to try and
and
allow
trust
my
my
body
body?
to do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
to self organize and do that. So, oh, and you could just see the thoughts of, well, that's not going to work. Um,
Yeah.
so I've hit it, and I couldn't quite see it because I was blocked by the tree, but I knew I'd flushed it. And I've hit it, and he goes, "Oh, it's starting right. I know it's fading back. Oh, that's on the pin." And it's quite funny. But anyway, being able to do that, that's not ever been my game.
Yep.
So
Mm.
that's exciting. So I feel like the way that I've rationalized it, I feel like the back nine was a reminder. Don't get cocky. Don't get
Yep.
ahead of yourself.
Yep.
Golf is still there to come and punch you in the face at any given moment. However, things are definitely moving in the right direction as a whole. And definitely the swing is moving in the right direction
Mm.
overall.
So it does sound like you've positively processed the round. And I know you would have been pretty disappointed, being mates for as long as what we have. I know how you would have been feeling it at the end of when you walked
Oh,
off
mate,
18.
it was tough.
And you would have been pretty disappointed in the car ride home and probably for the first maybe day or so afterwards. But it sounds like you've gone back and you've tried to, I guess, change the conversation or around what you're saying to yourself about the round and taking some of the positives out of it and just changing that perspective, changing that narrative to look at it more as a whole rather than picking a particular piece of negativity and running with that.
Absolutely. And I think you don't have too many other options, right? Like you can stew over you can get really upset and cranky about the lost ball moments and the perceived bad luck and the being hard done by and all the rest of
Yep.
it. But at the end of the day, when I look at it, the problems, the wheels fell off on the 12th, and the wheels fell off because my and when you go back to talking about the mental scorecard and how clear with the focus you are over the ball, like with your planning before the shot, and then when you go in and execute the shot. Like I would say, in fairness, I probably wasn't as clearly focused and committed to that tee shot as what I needed to be. Had been hitting the ball really well, and I think I maybe autopiloted a little bit.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And then you get what you deserve as a result. Like it might
Yeah.
feel harsh, and you can
And
get
that
caught up
that's
with that.
so
But
easy to do though. Like if you're just in like in a rhythm and you've got a certain expectation that okay, this is how I'm playing today. It is
yeah,
so easy just for one shot, just to switch off a little bit. And it doesn't have to be that much,
just a tiny bit.
just a tiny bit. And all of a sudden, golf comes back and reminds you that, hey,
Yeah,
you know,
you
you,
got to be
you,
on your game the
you
whole
got to
time.
be on, yeah, every day,
and
every
and it's
shot.
difficult. It's difficult because you talk about wanting to be in the infamous zone where you're not thinking about anything, you're just executing. And where's the line between those two things? Like how much can you be in the zone and just flow and do, versus have to be mindful and concentrate? And obviously, you know there's probably connections between the two. There's probably a whole episode in that, but I don't think that I had planned my shot, committed to my shot, and therefore the swing was possibly a little bit lazy, and it didn't miss by much. It probably missed the fairway by a meter, but that was enough for it to kick into the hazard. But where it got compounded, and that's like a bad swing's one thing, but a bad swing followed by a bad decision, followed by a bad decision and bad execution, that's a whole nother, like that
Mm,
takes it from a bogey or a double into a sextuple bogey, which is what it
yeah.
was. So
Mm,
I think, and I think when I look back at that, I got swept up in that moment in that hole. And that's what led to rinsing two more balls,
yep.
rather than,
Yep.
because when I dropped the first one, and I pulled the hybrid out, the ball was actually significantly below my feet, which was really
Yeah,
lending
right.
itself to fading another one into the second lake, which is what happened when probably what I should have done was hit a mid iron to the fat part of the fairway
Yeah.
safely.
So that
And
that was
and
more of a mental error rather than
yeah,
a,
I think
a,
I
a
think I
physical
think it
error and
was
just
because I was
decision making under pressure and trying to make up
trying to
for,
chase it.
yeah, like the last, error and just
Yeah,
compounding it with another error. Yeah.
yeah. So I think there's a bit in that. The next couple, potentially are a little bit unlucky, but at the same time, that happens. I mean, I think the one on 13, I think that was genuinely unlucky. If someone else has played my ball, then that's hard, and that does happen, unfortunately, a little bit around clubs when it's particularly busy. People just don't look at the ball. There's a ball there where they think there's went, so they just hit it without actually really
Who, who,
looking.
who would do that? I
People
mean,
do that. I've seen it happen, Andy Walker. I have seen it on exactly that hole.
when would you have seen that? I have no recollection of having anything like that
Yeah,
happen on that hole.
take yourself back to the Macquarie Cup, Andy Walker. So like it happens, right?
It is
And
it's very easy
yeah,
to do that. And I mean, I was playing, the same make and number, was a Titleist 4. And, you know, I hit a Titleist 4. And it was just,
yeah, but you see, you hit a Titleist 4 when you were playing a Titleist 4, a different Titleist 4. Fair enough. I was playing a Titleist 75.
yeah, yeah. There are probably aren't too many Titleist 75s on the golf course at that point.
Wouldn't have thought so. And the
Mm,
one that was left there was a Titleist 2.
mm,
So I don't think the individual looked at it that closely. Might have seen Titleist. Mine
mm,
also was a lot newer and had a green line around it and red dots on
mm.
it. And the other one did not.
Do you
So
reckon the other bloke would have noticed at some stage and gone, "Oh,
we
this doesn't look like my ball"?
we had this conversation actually within our group when we were a couple of holes down. We're going,
Yeah, right.
I wonder at what point old mates hold the putt and gone, oh, that's not my ball.
Yeah,
And at that point, whether he's
and whether
gone,
he's declared it.
yeah, I'm going to call myself with a 2 shot penalty every time I've
Yeah,
hit it.
yeah.
Unlikely,
Well, I
unlikely.
mean,
But
the question is that then he's got to go back and try and figure out where he actually hit the wrong ball.
yeah,
And
well,
if he
we'd left
doesn't
his one.
know,
We left his one behind, so he could have gone
yeah,
back and found it.
yeah. So if he doesn't know, then that's a DQ.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like you've got to disqualify yourself if you
yeah,
can't go back and
yeah,
rectify your mistake. It's a in a stroke event, it's a DQ. You can It's not stable foot where you can just go wipe. You're
yeah,
gone.
yeah, yeah. So it was bad. Um, but like it happens. It happens. But what can you do? I
Mm,
think. Like I think the other thing is it was a reminder. I'm still working on that mental resilience piece on the tough days.
mm,
There's been days when there's been a bit of a blip, been able to get it back on track, and therefore patted myself on the back and felt like I've had it solved. But these really challenging ones are still a reminder that there's you know, we're not perfect.
mm. So what about how do you feel as though your routine went throughout the round? Because I feel as though and certainly for me, getting into the zone for each shot, my routine is pretty key for that. And it's interesting because talking about routines, and again, this is probably something that we can discuss in depth at some point. But there are a lot of people who are very routine focused, and you've got to have the same routine and the same, time in your routine. I'm not necessarily convinced that you need to have a framework and a routine, but I'm not necessarily convinced that it needs to be exactly the same every single time. I think there are certain times in a routine where it's helpful to either take more or less time, and that sort of is based on, I guess, the shot that you've got in front of you. So yeah, and I sort of see, and I know that coming back to the US Open and something that Brandel Chambly said about Rory McIlroy is that he feels as though Rory's too routine focused and doesn't actually assess the individual shot as it is, and on its merits. But I certainly
Yeah,
do feel that routine is very key for me to get into that, I guess, zone state, for lack of a better word, before I'm playing a shot. So I mean, it sounds like you were good on the front nine, but as you came into the back nine, and certainly on the 12th tee, I'd like to understand how you felt. If you've thought about what your routine was like on the 12th,
yeah,
whether it
yeah,
was,
yeah,
was
yeah.
a bit lax, or whether you actually, went through your full routine and your full prep.
So just go back to Rory for a moment with that, because that conversation, friend of the show, Michael Leonard, chimed in on one of his episodes as well on the Wicked Smart Golf to take the counter view to say it's actually essential and it's a good thing that he takes that routine the whole time, and to suggest that he shouldn't is actually misunderstanding the value and the purpose of routines. So
Mm.
I also would probably argue that I wouldn't take a lot of my golf advice from Brandel Chambly, but that's a whole other topic of conversation. He's
Yeah.
played at a higher level than I have, but
Yeah. Well, it's
there's a
interesting
lot of
because they,
contentious remarks that get made.
yeah. I mean, there is a lot that's come out about Tiger Woods and his routine and comparisons between when he was playing well and when he was playing poorly. However, there's also been sort of some studies on Jack Nicklaus. And Jack Nicklaus, while he was in the same ballpark, he certainly
Mm,
wasn't as precise as what Tiger Woods was in his routine. So I'm a big believer in a pre-shot routine, and sort of since we've started the show, we've talked about and learned about the post-shot routine, and
mm,
I'm a big believer of the post-shot routine. but I also don't think that your routine should be so structured and set in stone that you know if you've got an unusual situation, you can't go, take a little bit more or a little bit less time
Mm.
to play a shot.
My view is that there is a difference between a physical routine and a mental routine, and it's quite likely different for every individual for what they feel that they need. And some people potentially need that physical ritual to get them into the headspace. But where I've been moving to a little more, and this is from um, the Think Box, Play Box work, Lynn Marriott, P. Nielsen, with the Annika Sorenstam coaches, is actually really about the important thing for me. And what I've found working and worked really well on the front nine in this round is getting a really clear picture of what I want to do in the think box, and then in the play box, just going and executing it. So it's
Mm.
not then about a physical routine over the ball. In fact, it's actually been more about doing it faster. So just stepping in, getting over the ball, and pulling the trigger rather than, because the thinking on that one from what I took away from their books was, for example, the person that goes up and has 2 or 3 practice swings next to the ball, they're doing their think box in their play box, and therefore they're
Yeah,
introducing technical thinking when they should be on the execution and athletic thinking,
yeah,
or that technical thinking should happen back in the think box. So whereas what I've noticed when before knowing these things and learning these things, what I would do would be step in to play the shot without having properly thought about it. And at that point, you're basically playing hit and hope, right? Because you don't really know what you're trying to do other than hit the ball over there.
yeah,
So for me, the biggest change has been getting a stricter routine about agreeing mentally what I want to do with the shot. So have a doesn't have to be as strict as a shot shape, but sort of having a flight path in your mind, and definitely having a target in your mind. And if you are going to play, a fade shape or a draw shape or something, if that is a feel that works for you, and I feel that it is, like I kind of need to have that in my mind because that influences the swing path. But having that clarity and then stepping over the ball and executing with that, sort of that feel in mind. I think on the tee, I just stepped up and hit it.
yeah,
I don't think I spent the time to get that clarity on the 12th. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
yeah,
I
yeah,
kind of got that clarity. And therefore, I probably was aiming at a spot where maybe I should have really been focused on having a bit of a draw feel. And I hit a bit of a cut,
yeah.
and it was the wrong shot because I wasn't
Right.
really as focused as I should have been.
Mm. So,
Like,
so then, given then we've also a little bit earlier talked about your second shot as being more of a mental error than a physical error. We're going back to the tee, and it feels as though you've done the same thing on the 12th. So then, we're sort of more looking at mental errors or making mental errors coming into later in the round than physical, like they manifest in physical errors, but they're more mental errors than what they are physically. Would you agree with that?
oh, I would actually. And the other thing, and I think this is potentially a lesson to take out of it. We've talked about this before. We had a 12:03 tea time. I didn't have lunch beforehand.
That was going to be my next question is how did you feel? Like, were you tired? Was it, um,
I wouldn't have said I was tired, but I'm not an eater on the course, right? Like I'm not a
mm,
snacker because I'm just
yep,
not a snacker in life,
yep.
um, which has its
I,
other
I love a
benefits. But
snack. And my
but
daughter takes after me. She loves a snack.
yeah, yeah,
She'll
that's
she'll
true. She
she'll have
does.
breakfast and 15
She
minutes
does.
after breakfast, oh, I can have a snack.
Pilgrims.
That's
Andy
me.
Walker's daughter is a snack bandit. It's a fact.
She
Um,
is.
so's mine, to be fair. I'm no, I've never been a massive snacker, and it was
Mm,
like even in my cricket playing days back in the day when you'd have the 2 or 3 sessions depending on the day, and you'd have the lunch break and the tea break. I wouldn't eat if I was
yeah, right.
batting over the tea break. I wouldn't eat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just I don't know why. It's just a
Mm,
thing, but I'm starting to think that it's necessary, and that
yeah.
I feel like in this situation, not that it's maybe 100% related, but quite likely because I do think like mentally I wasn't as on it through that second nine, and I wonder if that's part of the problem.
Yeah. See, I always take something out with me on the golf
Yeah.
course, whether it be an apple or a banana, some sort of muesli bar, protein balls. I'll always take something
Mm.
with me, even if I've got a morning tea time and I've just eaten breakfast and I go out. I will always take something out in the golf course
So
with
you
me.
put the morning tea in the morning tea time, do you?
Absolutely, 100%,
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that, and sometimes you're not even aware of it.
Mm.
It's like sort of dehydration. You know, by the time
Yep.
you're thirsty, it's
It's
too
too
late.
late. It's
You're
too late.
already dehydrated. I
I
feel
am
as
a
though it's the
yeah.
same
I drink a lot
with,
of water on the course,
yeah,
absolutely, but I don't eat.
mm, yeah,
And I think I need to address that because
yeah,
I feel like it's not the first time. Like I remember back, we talked about this a number of episodes ago when I first started doing the mental scorecard from a Neil Smith round, and I identified that it was on I think it was like the ninth, 10th, 11th when I was having a bit of a mental wobble.
yeah,
Um, and that potentially was the same reasons. Like that's what we were talking about at the time. So wouldn't surprise me if that's the case.
yeah,
And that
yeah.
could be a good lesson to learn out of this experience, definitely.
Well, I think it's also trial and error because it's something that I've and I did it quite a long time ago. Is that I found that I always needed something taken with me on the golf course.
Mm.
And yeah, it's something that, you control different things. I generally find that fruit is good, which is why I love the apple and the banana. I think they're probably the best two. I know you see a lot of the pros, and they'll have, muesli bars or protein bars and protein balls. And I have tried that. And if I'm a bit sort of short on time, I'll grab something like that on the way out. But I find what's best for me is an apple and banana. But that also there's a bit of hydration in, certainly in the apple. There's some hydration in there as well. So I find that combination to be sort of pretty good.
Yeah, I might have to do something about that because I don't necessarily want to fight so hard to put a good 10 or 11 holes together and then throw it all away like that. It's
Mm.
quite disappointing. Um, but like I say, all's not lost, and I don't want this to be a tale of woe because it isn't. I think it's good. It's a good reminder. It's one round of golf, um,
Well, it's not
but it's a
even that.
good
I think as we've discussed, it's not even one round of golf. I think there's a lot
yeah.
of really good things to come from it, and certainly the front nine and 10 and 11. There's a lot of really good things that you can take out of playing in effectively a championship style setup in a medal day. Like, I think there's a lot of positives there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was really, really happy with that first nine. And I was still really happy with a number of the other shots that I played afterwards, like the tee shot with old mate Golf Pro standing there watching,
Yeah, yeah,
being able to execute that in a moment of pressure and still feeling all the feelings from what had just happened beforehand too.
yep, yep.
Um, I was pretty happy with that. So there were definitely some positive takeaways. The other thing that I was going to mention as a lesson learned out of the whole experience was that I still feel that when the going gets tough, my short game's not reliable enough.
Mm,
And that there's still leaking too many shots there that, rather than having that as a reliable weapon that can get me out of trouble, it's not there yet. It's
mm.
absolutely not there yet. So I know there's quite a lot of work to do on that.
Well, we're
So
halfway through winter here in Australia, so we're starting to, the winter solstice has been and gone, so we're going
it's
to
come and
start
gone.
getting a
Yep.
bit more light in the afternoons. So might have to spend a bit more time in the Missing Links Golf Show High Performance Centre Central West Annex.
Yeah, and I will have to, but that's the thing. It's hard to practice short game in the winter.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we can do um, in terms of ball striking and even a bit with putting inside, but like short game chipping and pitching and some of those sorts of touch and feel skills,
Mm,
it's hard.
mm,
Unless any of the pilgrims out there have got some good ideas on how to do that with limited sunlight and limited access to facilities,
mm.
it's a bit of a struggle.
Well, I've tried a little bit of short game work in the High Performance Centre Central Coast, and I just find trying to play chips and pitches from artificial turf,
It's not
it's
the
not the
same.
same.
It's not the
I'm
same.
a fan of the putting mat, like love the putting mat, and
Mm,
I've got putting mirror now, and it's all working quite well. However, there's nothing like pitching and chipping off grass. I don't think you can replace that with artificial turf. Full swing, no problem at all,
mm.
because there's obviously your impact is a little bit different, but generally speaking, it's there's not a lot of difference between artificial turf and turf. But short game, I don't think you can replace grass and
Mm.
actually chipping and pitching around
It feels so
an
different.
actual green.
I mean, you can if you're chipping and pitching off a synthetic turf mat, you can hit 2 or 3 centimeters behind the ball and still make reasonable contact
Yeah, yeah,
because it'll
for
slide
sure.
through on the bounce.
Mm,
If you do that with a little bit of wet turf,
yeah, you're hitting
it's
it a foot
going
in front of
three.
you. Yeah,
Yeah, it's going 3 feet. Like it's so, and that's the thing. Like I know I can play a lot of the shots. I suspect I've got a few technical deficiencies as well. Um, but it's actually there's a lot of it's mental, I think, because there's certain shots that I'll step up and step over and just not have the solution for what I need to play and feel comfortable playing that sort of a shot and have a lot
yeah.
of doubt. And I just don't
Mm.
think doubt has a place in chipping and pitching.
No, no, I agree with that. However, I also think that I've read a little bit and watched a few instructional videos on short game and having standardized shots that you play
Mm,
with short game. So you've got your pitch and run, you've got your high, well, relatively high lob, and then you've got one that's sort of in between, like a stock standard shot. And I really think that rather than trying to be, say, a Phil Mickelson and having all the shots in the book, I think certainly, and even playing, I'm now down around 2.2. I still there are some shots I won't take on,
mm,
because I just think that I don't have the skill level to be able to take that shot on. So I will play away from the flag
mm.
and just take my medicine.
Yeah.
If it's a shot that I think, yeah, is just not a percentage play for me. So that's what I'm trying to do with my short game, is I'm trying to have standard shots and an array of standard shots with my 58, my 54, and my 50 that I can play, that I'll, get up to a certain situation and go, I know this shot. This is the particular shot that I'll play.
Mm. Makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I kind of think about from time to time is I've talked about getting a wedge fitting.
Yes.
We need to chat to Jason Butt again about
Yes.
this. Like, I've talked about getting a wedge fitting because that's also floating around in the back of my mind when I'm there going, I wonder if I'm just using the wrong tools as well. And that's not
Mm.
helping, so that's another confidence leak that's going out. Whereas at least, one of the things with, say, my driver and my irons now, because I've had them fitted, like that's not even a thought. Then I
Yep.
go, I know I've got the right equipment that suits what I'm doing. Um, so it's just all on me to
Do you know
execute.
what the bounce is in your wedges?
Um, I think 10 on my sand wedge and maybe 8 on my gap wedge potentially. I think that might
Mm.
be what it is.
Yeah.
But I've got no idea if that's what I should have.
Mm.
I really don't know.
Mm. It also
So,
depends on what type of grass you're playing off. Um, so I mean, it's interesting because when I bought my two wedges, and I've got my 58 and 54, they're both 12-degree bounce.
mm,
And the reason I got 12-degree bounce was I was when I bought them, I was just reading a bit about bounce and what would suit me. And the majority of the comments were, if wedges with higher bounce make it easier to play shots, to play
mm,
wedges around the green. So I just went, all right, I'm just going to get a fairly high bounce
load it
wedge.
up on
But
the
that's
bounce. Yeah.
that's all well and good. until you're on a fairly tight,
Yeah.
you know, lie, and bounce just doesn't really work that
Yeah.
well. You've got to put it, quite a long way back in your stance. And yeah, I found that when the short amount of time I was at Magenta Shores,
Yeah.
and trying to play sort of, wedges around the greens at Magenta Shores with 12 degrees of bounce and very tight lies was quite tricky at
Yeah.
times.
So I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I got the right lofts. I don't know if I got the right bounce. I don't know if I got the right heads. So if I got the right shafts. I don't know if I got the right
Mm.
grips. Don't know if I got the right technique. There's a reasonable amount of doubt in all of that, Andy Walker. I probably need to work through at some point.
Maybe have a chat to the new pro, just see what his
Yeah,
thoughts are.
I do plan to do that. I'm going to get in contact because he's offering a service with lessons with full video analysis as well
Oh,
in the
nice.
setup. So
Yep.
I think that's definitely something to do, something to have a look at. So
Mm.
we'll get into that, and I'm looking forward to. I think it's kind of getting to the right time because as we're approaching spring, get some of this stuff done with the time to work on it over the summer months. I think that's probably the right time.
Mm. Yeah. And come mid-February, you'll be ready to rock and
Oh,
roll.
I know, and that's the thing. There is a lot to do in that amount of time,
Mm.
but we can
Mm.
do it, ladies and
Because
gentlemen.
I'm
We can
still
do it.
I'm still keen for both of us to take a trip to the New South Wales Senior Amateur in
Oh, we're doing it.
2025.
We're doing it.
That's
Like that's the
the
reason we're doing this show.
Yeah, we don't have dates as yet, but this
Yeah,
year it was the first sort of half of March.
of
So
March.
yeah, look out, first half of
Yeah,
March 2025.
yeah. No, 100%. We'll be in for that, wherever that may be. Um, whoever knows. So it'll be somewhere in New South Wales, I would imagine.
Could they call it the New South Wales Senior Amateur if it's not in New South Wales?
Wouldn't have thought so. I wouldn't
No,
have thought so.
no.
No, but yeah, that was the tale of the tape, Andy Walker. So I haven't looked at the percentage, mind you. Actually, I did see on the Golf New South Wales app they rather kindly gave me a gross differential of 15 point something for that round because I think they capped my 11 on the
Yeah,
12th
right.
at a certain
Nice.
point.
Yeah, yeah.
So that'll put me at, I think that's going to be something like a minus 190% or something like that. So
I reckon that'll win this month.
I'm currently in front. Currently in
Uh,
front.
wouldn't that be a yeah,
It'd be something. It'd be quite
yeah,
something. But look, I'm going to have a week off this week. I'm probably going to get a practice round in, I think, on the Sunday rather than playing the comp on the Saturday. And the
yeah.
reason for that is because of the fact that the comp at my local club is playing the third nine loop, which is
Ah,
just,
yeah. You're not a fan.
um, no. And I mean, I don't mind the holes, but what it does to the course rating and therefore the handicapping scores, it's actually just not worth having it in your top 20.
Yep,
So
yep.
I'm going to give that a miss until they re-rate that nine. So for anyone that's
Mm.
listening from the
Boycott.
committee at the club, I won't be there. Don't think they care. But sort your scratch rating out basically because it's farcical.
Mm.
Um, but I think it's a good opportunity actually, not just to go out and try and compete because that would lend itself to getting back into outcome focus. I actually just want to
Yes.
get out there and play, 9 holes or 18 holes and
Mm.
get in process and try a few things and practice a few things
Yep.
and sort a few things out from last week.
Sounds good.
I think long term it's a little bit more sensible.
Yep.
So that's my plan, Andy Walker. Have you got a plan?
R&R, going on holidays, going to Queensland,
Not a
spend some
bad
time at the
plan.
beach.
I like that plan.
Yeah, might spend some time in the pool. I did do a bit of reading, and I think the pool is heated, so yeah, I'm a
Nice.
fan of that. They've got some tennis courts, so given both my son and daughter are getting into tennis, might have a couple of games of tennis. Although I've got to be careful not to
No serving.
have an injury uh, while um, while I'm there, and yeah, it wouldn't be like me to go too hard.
Get in the
Uh,
umpire's chair, Andy Walker.
I'm not convinced that there's going to be an umpire's chair at a resort tennis
There
court.
might be.
Yeah,
Quite often
maybe,
is. Quite
maybe.
often is. Get up there in the chair. It's a good view from up there.
So yeah, so that's really about it. Bit of R&R. I think my son wants to go to an escape room. We did that last time we were in Queensland. That was a lot of fun.
So if I could offer some advice, I would say take him to the escape room, pop him in, take your lovely wife out for lunch.
I'm not convinced that that's, you know, in the spirit of a family holiday, but you
Um,
know, I'll
it's
I'll
it's
I'll
just
run
a thought. It's a thought.
I'll run it past my other half, and I'll let her know that
I
this
think
was
I
this
think
was
she'll be
your
supportive.
suggestion.
I think she'll be supportive.
Yes,
So give that one a
maybe not.
go. Yeah, and look, and then we just crack on with the back nine, don't we, for the second half of the year?
We do,
Um,
we do.
we've
Yes,
successfully
it's
teed off on 10.
we have.
So way to go for us. And Andy Walker, I wish you the best for your holiday. And
Might be.
I'm thoroughly looking forward to next time we get behind the microphones because we'll be talking about the Open, the last
We will
major of the
be.
year.
Yeah, no, looking forward to the Open. It should be quite an interesting event. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Rory bounces back.
Well, this
We
was going to
got the
be my
Scottish
question.
Open. Yeah, got the Scottish Open
Yep,
this week, I should
this
say,
weekend.
and the first tournament back. Be interesting to see how many questions he gets about the US Open and what
There's
his
got to be plenty.
narrative's going to be.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting. You're right. It'll be very interesting. It does seem to have died down a bit, but whether it will ramp up again when he turns up. I mean, he's going to be at the Scottish Open, so he'll get the questions there.
Mm, mm.
Uh, and depending on how he answers them and how he plays, obviously that will dictate what happens the following week at the Open.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
Andy Walker, given that our next episode is the review of the Open and we'll know who has played and won, who are you tipping for that event is played?
Look, I think that it's a tough one. I mean, Scotty Scheffler hasn't really been playing that well.
No,
I'd like to see Xander Schauffele do well again, but
Ooh,
that's just because I'm a massive fan of Xander Schauffele, and I
he's got
think
the
that
Adidas shirt
he's
on right now. So
yeah,
not that he's
I
wearing
do
them
actually
anymore, but
the
yeah,
three
he's moved on.
stripes.
Yeah, he's
Um,
moved on, but yeah.
and I think his game is transportable across all different golf courses.
Mm,
So I'd like to see him do well. I reckon Rory will do well.
mm,
Um, yeah, I think he'll do well, and it'll be interesting to see how Matt Fitzpatrick does. I think he's sort of been building in Open Championships, and I think that he's probably in with a shot as well, given it's well, it's not quite home ground because he's English, but it's effectively home ground for him. So yeah, I think there's probably a few in the pack that might come out, but I'm not. I mean, Scheffler's still gone in as favourite, but I'm not convinced that he's going to come away with the trophy. What about yourself?
So I think dark horse on this one, who's a strong chance, Ludwig Aberg, Weiberg.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Um,
Well, he's had a couple
Ludwig's
of good majors so far this year, and hopefully he would have learnt from those experiences.
whoopsie.
I think he sort of dropped his bundle a little bit in the US Open, whereas the Masters obviously was he was in his element. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he handles it, especially if he gets up near the lead.
I think he's a chance. I think Victor Hovland is a chance. Going with the European flavour here at the moment, as you can see.
Yep.
He's a chance. Um, Yevgeny Kafelnikov, I think, is going to struggle.
Is he even playing?
No, he's not. Of course, he's not.
Well,
He's on the poker circuit,
well,
so that's the
let's
major
just say
reason why he's
he's
going to
going to
struggle.
struggle to win.
Yeah. I think Scotty's always the easy tip, right? Because he's head and shoulders number one in the world at the moment. Um, I don't. I just don't feel like he's going to win this one.
No, he just
Um,
doesn't seem to be in the right space for it.
something, whether it's parenthood, whether it's not getting enough sleep
Mm,
with new barb, I don't
yeah,
know. It could
yeah.
that could all be part of it. Um, but I don't know, mate. I reckon Rory's going to win it.
You reckon Rory? Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting. It's a big
yeah.
call.
No, I do. And we had the conversation after the Pinehurst breakdown. Um, And I asked you the question about whether or not you thought that what happened to him would absolutely hurt or help.
Yep.
And I feel like, as much as I don't like what he did, not hanging around to shake Bryson's hand, I don't really care whether or not he stayed to talk to the media, but
Yeah.
um, definitely think he should have stayed to shake Bryson's hand and acknowledge the winner. I think leaving the course before, now, when you're in contention, leaving the course before it's decided and the winner comes off, I just think that's poor form. So
Yep.
I'm not going to change my mind on that one. But I think he's done the right thing by taking some time off to regroup
Mm. Yeah, for
and
sure.
not rush back in. And
Yep.
I feel like, his game's been in a good place. And I don't know, I just think he's scraped the bottom of the barrel. It's almost making an 11 on the 12th.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
Yep.
absolutely scraped the bottom of the barrel that I think when we're staring the demon in the face in the next one, I just don't think it's going to be as scary because he's been there, he's
Mm.
plumbed those depths and he's come through it and
Yep.
he knows that he's okay.
Mm. Mm. So you
Like,
don't think those mental demons will come back to haunt him if he's in the same position?
I don't think they can be as powerful ever again as what they were at
Mm.
Pinehurst.
Okay.
I think they
That's interesting.
absolutely tore him apart at Pinehurst,
Mm.
and that's why he missed both of those putts.
Yep.
Yes, the one on 18 was tough, but I think he was a shot duck at that point anyway after what happened to him on 16.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and I think that was absolutely mental. And I think that was
Mm.
all of that external noise coming in. But I think now that he's faced it, because this is the first time, like he's been close in a lot of majors, but it's usually been because he's been on a tear on Sunday, but he was never actually going to get there. But he's finished
Yep.
a few off, but he was never likely to challenge, or, you know, potentially the Open the prior year where he just the putts didn't drop, but it wasn't like he was ever in the lead.
Mm.
His
Mm.
tournament to lose, and then he lost it. Like that was his absolute nightmare,
Yeah,
and his
yeah.
nightmare has happened. I feel like Rory's going to win, and I feel like Rory's going to win running away from the field
Yeah,
by about
right.
6 shots.
Okay. Wow. There you go. I
Yeah,
must admit, I think that if Rory's going to win a major, I think that's probably the only way at
yeah,
this
he won't win
stage
it
that
by
he's going to
one. He'll
do it.
win it by
Yeah.
a bunch if he's going to win
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I think that, what he needs to do is, yeah, not have anyone anywhere near him coming into the back nine on Sunday.
Yep.
And then we'll see what he does. What are your thoughts on any of the live guys?
I mean, love seeing Bryson go around the US Open. That was quality. I just I'd be surprised if he could do it again. Like
Mm.
that's just such an emotional high, and he was close in the PGA. Obviously got over the line in the US Open. I don't think he's probably going to be there again. I mean, I don't really know. Like, how many of the other live guys are actually playing? I'm assuming Brooks Koepka is going to be there running
Cam
around.
Smith. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
he's
who's
a
who's Cam Smith these days?
well. I mean, I just don't think that you can, certainly in an Open Championship, given what he did at St Andrews, he's especially if his putter gets hot. I think that he's one that
What
can potentially be an
he
Open
he
specialist.
can, but I just don't know if he's got the same desire anymore.
Mm.
Is really my Cam
But he's,
question.
he's he's got the major, got the cash, and now he's
Yeah,
comfortable. Is that what you think?
that's my read of the body language that I see from him in tournaments. I've never
Yeah,
met
right.
the guy. I've got
Mm.
no basis on which to stake this claim, but I just don't see the same fire in the belly
Yeah,
from
right.
Cam
Okay.
as what we saw that year when he won the Open Championship at St
Mm.
Andrews.
Mm.
The Aussie that I'd like to see do really well is Minwoo Lee.
Mm. Yep. Yep.
I just don't know that he's there yet. Maturity in his game, decision
Mm.
making.
Yep.
I'm a fine one to talk, but
Mm.
there's
Well,
so
he
much
did.
talent. There's so
He
much
he
talent in
won
this guy.
did he win a Scottish Open?
He won the Scottish Open a couple of years
Yeah,
ago.
a
Yeah,
couple of years
yeah,
ago. So he
yeah,
can do it around a links course.
yeah.
It's just a matter of
It,
whether he's ready to step up in a slam or not.
so the thing with Minwoo, right? Like he's got all of the length that you could possibly want. He's got a fantastic short game with his wedges,
Mm.
but he's also got that beautiful stinger 2 iron that
Yeah,
Tiger used to play. And
yeah,
when the
yeah,
wind's blowing, that could be a
yeah.
really useful weapon around somewhere like
Mm.
Troon.
Yep, yep.
So I don't know. He could be interesting. Someone I think that's probably, let's say, in recent times, massively overachieved. And we mentioned him earlier in the show, and I do want to bring the conversation back there. Is Keegan Bradley?
Okay.
I don't feel that he's going to figure in this. He may not even be playing. But I mean, you've heard the headlines that over the last 48 hours about Keegan Bradley, have you not?
Well, I know he's the Ryder Cup captain
Yeah.
in 2025. Yeah.
Now, explain to me, has that selection been made by the USGA, or has that selection been made by the producers of Netflix Full Swing?
Well, I don't know. They say money talks, don't they? Um, I understand after watching Full Swing. I mean, he was pretty devastated when it came to missing his spot in the Ryder Cup team. So he's obviously got a passion for it. He's obviously, he's there or thereabouts when it comes to, well, he was in 2023 when it comes to the team. So I don't know. I mean, who else do you put in as captain if it's not Keegan Bradley? I mean, who's your alternative?
I don't know, Tiger Woods.
Well, did I read somewhere he knocked it back?
I don't know. Maybe he has. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
that's
like,
I don't know that whether that was true or not. And
you Ryder Cup captains usually, you know, an ex player or a very close to be ex player, very senior player
mm,
with a wealth of experience, generally of that or more than a lot of your current crop that's really got something to teach them, and someone that's
mm,
regarded as a bit of a strategist around the game. I mean, maybe Keegan is those things. I don't know, but I don't think he's had the career that would warrant him being named as the youngest ever Ryder Cup captain. I just find that that's a bit extraordinary, and I
mm.
can't help but think that it's a massive apology for not picking him last year.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. I mean, he's won a major, so I mean, he's a decent golfer. Like it's not like
I'm not saying he's not.
he doesn't know like
I'm not
his
saying
way
he's
around
not,
a
but I
golf course.
just
I mean, and he's
I
represented
literally,
this. He's represented the
yeah, he has.
states
He's
in
played
Ryder
in the
Cup.
Ryder Cup. Yeah, he has played in the Ryder Cup in one,
He,
maybe
he,
two.
he won. He was in the one where they were a mile in front. The US were a mile in front, and then lost on home territory. Was that like 2013 or something? I think it was. It was that one
Oh,
where,
could be,
and
could
and
be.
there's there's the scenes of Ian Poult had beaten his chest and
Yeah, it could be right.
Martin
My Ryder Cup
Keimer,
history knowledge
holding that
is not
putt.
brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't know. I genuinely, my reaction when I saw that announcement on social media was that it was some kind of April Fool style um, announcement. That was just
Yeah,
my
right.
immediate emotional reaction. It did not, like, I thought, oh, that they're having a laugh because of last year, like with all the hoo ha about him
Mm.
not being picked last year. So yeah, it's a meme going around the internet that he's been named as captain, and then I
Yeah,
found out
right.
that it was true, and I thought, wow, that's not what I was expecting.
Mm.
Anyway, it's one to watch, I think. So
It'll be
I
interesting to
mean,
see how they go. I mean, I certainly think that yeah, he's certainly got a passion for the Ryder Cup, and as I said before, like I did watch Full Swing, and he was pretty devastated when he missed, and he wanted it all the way through the year. That was his primary
to be
focus.
perfectly honest, he probably should have been picked.
Yeah, but I understand Justin Thomas being picked as sort of, the for the sort of heart and soul cultural aspect of the team because he is a team man
Mm.
that can,
And
build.
he's Zach Johnson's mate.
Well, there is that too. So yeah, I don't know. Is it, would he be my first choice? Probably not, but I understand the decision, not for because, of an apology, but on his own merits. He's a fine golfer and has a passion, has played Ryder Cup and has a passion for the event.
I'd like to know what the Pilgrims think.
Mm.
Throwing it out there, I'm I'm shocked. Andy
Okay.
Walker's taken the diplomatic approach, which is
Mm.
good. One of us needs to avoids lawsuits that way. Um, but I personally found it quite remarkable that that was the decision. Obviously, they weren't going to go with Phil Mickelson, but that would have been interesting if they did.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not convinced that, you know, we'll see Phil Mickelson as captain of the Ryder Cup anytime soon.
I'd say it's highly unlikely, Andy Walker. But Pilgrims, I think we've dribbled on enough
Yeah.
tonight at the hour and a half mark. Thanks for listening. Thanks in advance for all of your sympathy for what happened to me on the back nine of the recent round. I'll be back bigger and stronger. Rest assured that will not keep me down for long. Just need to sort a couple of things out, both physically and mentally and emotionally.
Mm,
But
mm,
we'll be good. We'll be good and stronger for the experience.
mm.
So Andy Walker,
Snacks, I believe,
snacks. I
is,
think I think
yeah,
that's the answer. Yeah, yeah. Snacks is the
that's what
answer
it's all
pretty
about.
much for
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. But Andy Walker, our pilgrims can find us on Facebook at the Missing Links Golf Show, Instagram Missing Links Golf, X/Twitter TML Golf Show. Email us
Yeah, email us
missinglinksgolfshow
the
at
missing link.
gmail.com,
Yep.
or click the send us a text message button in the show notes. All of these things are possible. Please get in contact. The challenge is still there. First pilgrim to send us a voice memo as Voice of the Pilgrims will actually get on as Voice of the Pilgrim.
Yep.
That's the
We'll be
prize.
on the show.
Yep. Anything you want to add, Andy Walker?
Look, I think that it's that time of the show where there's only one thing left to do.
Mm?
That is to rock out, Pilgrims.